Hey guys, Dreddy here, bringing you another Pioneer Prelim. Going to be playing some Gruul Prowess here for 4 rounds of a tournament. Pretty stock list at this point, but just to show you guys, we're running 16 creatures. We got the 8 Prowess 1-drops. We got the 4 Slickshot show-offs, and then we have 4 questing druids as well. Then we also have Kumano, Faces, Kakazan as our other kind of creature 1-drop. And in a pinch, you can also play Demonic Ruckus on turn 1. Found this card to be very good. I prefer it to Audacity, primarily because of the fact that you can play it for 0 mana when you plot it, on the turn you play it. It feels nicer than committing to paying a mana for the Audacity, losing out on the 1 power. A little bit annoying on the 1/2s. You don't mind it so much on the show-off. And I think it makes putting it late game onto a Gigantha much better than Audacity. 6/6 Menace Trample is just very difficult to deal with, and it makes Gigantha into a real threat. To round out the deck, then 4 Play with Fire, 4 Monstrous Rage, 4 Blossoming Defense. I think that's totally stock. And then 3 Atarka's Command. You're only going to want to cast 1 of these per game, generally, I think. I could even see going down to 2. This card, I thought of initially and kind of dismissed it, but after playing the deck for a few events, I realized, okay, I kind of actually would be interested in playing something like Lightning Strike, just to get some extra reach and kill them with a top deck show off. And Atarka's Command is the best version of that, right? Occasionally the turning off life gain clause is going to do something, maybe, and you're going to win a combat against mono white, maybe with the +1/+1, or against spirits, gaining reach can be useful. So this card kind of does more than you might think initially. And then 2, Witchstalker Friendly. Not married to this card in the main deck. This could be a 5th protection spell, like a Snakeskin Veil or a Tyvar Stand, instead of 1 Frenzy. But getting through Sheoldred is nice, and just casting it for 1 or 2 mana on the turn you kill them is totally fine as well. In the sideboard, we got Rampaging Ferocidons for the Amalia matchup largely. For the slower matchups, we have this case of the Crimson Pulse, Magebane Lizard for Phoenix, and I'm going to try and bring this in more often, see what happens, because I am noticing people are running more of this card in the sideboard than I've been inclined to, so I want to try and test it out during this event if possible. Rending Volley is obviously good against mono white spirits. It kills Grease Fang at instant speed. If we run into that, we might bring it in. Against red decks, we got these red cap melees for the mirror and such. And then Pick Your Poisons, just very flexible all-rounder card, is going to deal with a lot of problematic permanents. And listen, you can't go wrong with a free 5/5 for 5, so we're playing Gigantha. So let's see how it goes. Alright guys, welcome to round 1 of the tournament. We are on the play, which is always nice when you're playing such an aggressive deck. Playing against Milliken, not an opponent Milliken, apologies of the card. Not opponent I recognize the name of, I don't think. They're on a Yorion deck. We can see here the reveal in the 80 cards. And hand looks absolutely fantastic. This is essentially, ideally what you want to see. Hopefully the audio is okay here, guys. I've been messing around with it, but I know it's not perfect yet. So do bear with me on these videos as I sort of learn this production process. Start off with Copperline Gorge. Start off with the Soulscar Mage. Doesn't have haste, obviously, so we want him to be attacking as soon as possible. And such a slow start from the opponent here. And we are seeing Jetmir's Garden, so this is probably Nivtalite rather than, a blue-white control deck, a 5-color, a 5-color control deck with leyline bindings, I'm imagining. So I could consider, especially since I have 2 copies of it, I could consider just playing the show off here and getting in for 1. But considering we have so much prowess in our hand, I think I just want to play it a bit safer and plot it, because I don't want to get blown out by a turn 3 temporary lockdown, is essentially what I'm thinking. So let's just get our mana safely invested in this plot. and they plant up the beanstalk. That is pretty nice for us to see. It's not exactly a scary prospect for us to deal with. They're not ramping, which is nice. Drawing a land is, of course, excellent. And yeah, going to just play a land here. And we're just going to attack for 2 with these guys. And then we can plot another show off, pass the turn. And it should be pretty difficult for them to deal with what we got coming here, hopefully. Opponent's thinking they play Dragon Skull Summit, so we're not going to have to deal here with a temporary lockdown. Or, I don't think they're playing any kind of damage sweepers for 3 mana. I suppose it's possible, but seems unlikely. And I don't think they're going to be dead on their turn or anything like that. Like, we don't have enough spells for that. But they could be in rough shape here. Like, it seems unlikely they're going to get to Bring to Light mana another 2 turns because they didn't have the Sylvan Caryatid. Okay, we draw a land. It's a Boseiju, which is really nice actually because that is now beating their Leyline Binding, if that's what they have. Which Leyline Binding is costing 3 mana because Crag and Dragon Skull Summit obviously aren't contributing anything to the types, so it still costs 3. If I play both show-offs here and attack with everything, that's 4 base damage. 2 to the face is 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 overall. And then, I could go crazy and decide to kill one of my own creatures, which would be, let's say if we killed one of the 1/2s, that would be another 5 damage. So that would actually be 17. So we could consider that. We're not going to have the mana to do that if they have the Boseiju. And the question is, how much are we going to play around like a 4 mana sweeper here that they have? I'm kind of not too worried about it. I think we do just go for it here with both. Because I'm expecting all the power to hit on their turn 5 when they have access to Bring to Light and can then go, Bring to Light for a Sunfall or whatever sweeper they're packing, Deadly Cover Up, something like that. Whereas the chance that they've drawn naturally a sweeper is obviously much lower. So we'll start off here. We'll see if they want to respond to this in some way. Kind of unlikely, I suppose. But I'm not going to go all in here, and I don't think, and try and kill them. I mean, okay, and we're scrying 1. We will definitely put a land on the bottom. So they're on 15, and this is 6, 8, 10. So this is putting them to 5. I think that's fine. We just put them to 5. And it looks like they're tapping out for something here. Okay, they're going Colligan's Command on our Sure Shot, and we discard. So if in response I kill it with the Witchstalker Frenzy, that would be another 4 damage, and we're losing 3. So that's obviously not worth it because, they're still not going to be dead, and we're just going to be down another card. So let's just let this resolve. I'm going to discard the Witchstalker Frenzy, and we'll just get in for 7. Pass the turn. That might sound a little ridiculous to walk through these things, but you'd be surprised at the damage this deck can dish out when you're not expecting it. Okay, so suddenly they've gone to 5 domain playing this. No, yeah, they have. So they now have access to 1 mana Leyline Bindings, although tapping this for red, it doesn't look like that's what's happening. And we have a presumably top deck Sylvan Caryatid. And I could always kill their Beanstalk here, but that doesn't seem like a good idea. Okay, we draw a spell, which is, you know, it pings them for 1, but more importantly, we're getting some prowess triggers here. So they go to 7, and we're going to get in for 5 damage. They go to 2, and do I want to blow up their beanstalk? I don't think I do. You know, whatever. They bring to light here, they draw some cards. It's, I think, not really leaving us in too much better a situation to give them an extra land. And we do just have a Sunfall here. Okay, so they can draw. They're making a incubator token, which we can Boseiju to get rid of as a blocker if we need to. But we're not going to do that right now, obviously. And we just draw the Play with Fire, and that's game. So pretty tough matchup for the Orion pile decks here, obviously. We just have very consistent fast starts. It's tough for them to have the right cards against us in an 80 card deck, obviously. And this is probably just a bit of a nightmare matchup for our opponent, I would imagine. Don't really want to bring in the case and go into kind of slow down mode, because by the time I feel like this case is active and we've gone into the later game, I feel like it's very difficult for us to win. I feel like that's really when the Bring to Light deck has really come online. Pick Your Poison is obviously likely to come in here. It's going to take out the Beanstalk, the Temporary Lockdown, the Leyline Binding. You know, they're going to have some random artifacts, I suppose, from the Incubator tokens and maybe some other things. The Nivs are obviously flyers. The Orion is a flyer. We can make them sacrifice. So this card really just showing its versatility. Like any of those things on its own, maybe we don't want to bring the card in, but I think we definitely do, given it does all of those different things. Magebane Lizard, I mean, I don't think this is the matchup for it. They're largely just casting 1 spell a turn until they get to the Bring to Light turns. And, you know, then what? It's like ping them for 1, ping them for 2. I don't think that's enough critical mass of spells to do that. You know, Ferocidons, they're not really gaining life or anything like that. You know, the Witchstalker frenzies, if they didn't have Caryatid as their blocker, obviously I would leave that in, but they do. So there we go. And then I think the last cut is going to be a Play with Fire here. It's not taking out any early blockers or anything like that. So just seems like we can shave one pretty easily. And here we go into game 2. Excuse me as I sip my coffee here after a victorious game 1. Been very impressed with this deck. Obviously, it's seeing a lot of momentum on Magic Online. I think the Sure Shot is just such an upgrade to this archetype, both in Pioneer and in Modern, that it's just very competitive. Anyone who likes this style of deck should definitely be looking into this for the upcoming RCQ season. Here, I'm going to start off with the Kumano. I didn't talk about the opening hand when we drew it, but pretty clearly just a keep, right? Multiple 1-drops, a protection spell, some gas for later on, and a couple of lands is just pretty average, maybe slightly above average opening hand, I would say. So we got the Kumano here. I'm going to play the Karplusan Forest and get this in. It means we don't have to shock and telegraph that we're keeping up a protection spell. And obviously we may not need to use it, so we might save ourselves the life as well. They have Temporary Lockdown here, so be it. Doesn't look like they do. We might be getting Thought Seized here or something like that. Not sure what's happening. Black-green, play a Caryatid. Okay, sure thing. Not a very effective blocker since there's a counter on the Soulscar Mage. Pick Your Poison doesn't have a target just yet, but I would imagine it will do soon. And here I'm going to go to combat, attack with both. They go no blocks, so they're very interested in keeping this Sylvan Caryatid alive. I'm just going to get the maximum damage in this turn. We're going to go 3 to each opponent. Creatures gain +1/+1. And of course, reach till end of turn. So this puts them to 9. And then I'm going to shock in a Stomping Ground to hold up Blossoming Defense. Obviously, we want to keep the Boseiju in hand. You know, they can have temporary lockdown still. Or we would probably be happy in a turn or two to trade it for Leyline Binding. They have another tap land. This is just the thing with these Yorion decks, just these very slow starts with the 5-color lands. They cast Pillage the Bog, just very good card, cantrip, you know, that you could plot and see a lot of cards with, so definitely excellent for these kind of big Yorion decks that are interested in finding silver bullets. But it looks like it's just going to be too slow here against our deck, just kind of doing what it's supposed to do. Not a particularly, I mean, game 1 was pretty nuts with the double Slickshot, but sure shot, excuse me, I can never get that card's name correct. But this game, we haven't really got, you know, popped off that hard or anything. We've had a pretty average curve for the first couple turns, and it still looks like it's going to be enough to get the job done here. So we draw a show off. Is this lethal? Let me just make sure. So we cast that. They block, presumably, the Soulscar Mage. Then we have 3 base damage. This is 5, 7. So that'll be putting them to 2, actually. So not quite killing them. But then we can also cast Pick Your Poison pre-combat. Just 4 more triggers, and that does kill them. So cast our show off. Cast Pick Your Poison. Each opponent sacrifices a creature with flying. Obviously, doesn't matter. They can have something here. You know, 1 mana spell they can have up, but this deck just doesn't play too many 1 mana spells like that, Fatal Pushes or whatever. So I'm just gonna be pretty greedy here and try to go for it, especially because they just had some card selection and you know, have ramped, but they did miss a land drop there too, which is interesting. And they block there. Okay, well, so if they have removal here, which it looks like they do because they presumably would block something else, then I could consider casting Blossoming Defense on the Etching of Kumano, assuming they're going to kill one of my other creatures. That then kills their Caryatid, and I still get through with presumably the Soulscar Mage for 4 damage, and my show off dies. Because it doesn't make any sense here that they wouldn't block this, right? Or I can just let this happen and they go to 3 and just hold up my Blossoming Defense to save the creature. In which case, would that actually kill them if they cast a spell? Let's say they cast it on this. Yeah, that would obviously kill them because we could save it. I guess we just do that then and just put them to 3. Now they just are in a position where it's hard for them to actually cast the removal spell. Kind of, like, I probably would have been greedy and went for it if they blocked the Soulscar Mage, but this block just makes it kind of obvious that they do in fact have, you know, Torch the Tower, Fatal Push, whatever, something like that. Or, you know, maybe they don't. Maybe, I mean, I don't know why you would block like this, but it seems like you should be scared enough to chump here. Maybe they're just thinking, hey, if I'm dead, I'm dead. Okay, and that's what they do. So they do go to 3 here, but we just get through with our creatures, and we still have Blossoming Defense up. And okay, end step, they're going to try and Fatal Push our guy. I am just going to save it. So this is a case of we're trading Blossoming Defense for Fatal Push instead of trading it for Sylvan Caryatid. And we're keeping our show off alive. So kind of a strange exchange there, and we are down the Pick Your Poison in the exchange too. Which obviously looks a bit silly now that I did that. It did still get 3 damage through, so you can think of it just as a lava spike. But I just thought it was quite unlikely they would have Fatal Push here until they blocked the 2/2. So it does put us down cards, but also given that we have Questing Druid in hand, you know, that's kind of fine, to be honest. We also have Den of the Bugbear in play, so if we naturally draw a land, I could consider just activating the Den. And they did miss a land drop, so, you know, it's kind of tough for them here. Looks like a sweeper. Okay. Ooh, and they get to add 3 mana, 4 mana. Very impressive, actually. Basically just a 0 mana sweeper here. And we'll see what they have. They have a land now as well, so this was off the top. Their mana colors are quite restricted here, and they draw Fable. Okay. It's a question, if we draw a land, are we interested in just activating the Den, forcing the trade, and putting them to 2 with the 1/1 token? And having 4 lands in play with their Fable Rummage coming up? Well, now we're not, obviously, because I would like to play this. So let's just start with Seek the Beast. See what we draw. I mean, we could just draw a Tarka's Command and the game's over. Oh yeah, and we draw Play with Fire and the game is over. So Questing Druid really showing its value in this game. Our opponent at GG's. And this kind of shows why I like playing this Gruul Prowess deck over something like Boros Heroic that people are playing, you know, where you're playing God's Willings and you have the double striker, the 1/1 double striker, the illuminating Virtuoso, whatever it's called. Just, I think Questing Druid Seek the Beast is such a powerful card to have access to. Just these 2 mana draw 2s that also then turns into a threat later in the game. And you still have access to these protection spells that are maybe not quite as good as, you know, God's Willing and Lauren's Escape. They're not giving Indestructible. And, you know, you can't trick the Amalia deck by giving their Wildgrowth Walker Indestructible and making them deck themselves or whatever. But I think this card alone is just powerful enough to make me want to play red-green. So, round 1 victory in the prelim. See you guys in round 2. Thanks for watching. All right, guys, welcome back for round 2 of this Pioneer prelim. See who we got. Against McWinsauce, a well-known MTGO end boss. Very good player. He's on a 60-card deck. With no companion. Now, we have no 1-drop here, no second land. And, you know, a show-off is nice, but this hand just goes wrong too many ways, right? We just desperately need that second land, and even then we're kind of slow off the ground, so I think I've got a mulligan this one. Opponent keeps on 7, and yeah, we're going to keep this one. Bunch of 1-drops. What are we putting back is the question. You know, like the Boseiju doesn't, you know, it's not looking too great here. Just a green source doesn't actually do very much with all these red pips in our hand. But having this Questing Druid does kind of fix our mulligan. I kind of like all these other cards, but I'm going to imagine that maybe the Demonic Ruckus can go, and we'll just keep the 2 lands. Obviously, whenever you look at and I'm going to cast the Kumano first. Obviously, whenever you look at a hand like that, you think, wow, I really wish I got to keep all 7 of those cards, you know? But that's always the way it goes. Okay, Watery Grave, Shock, and no Thoughtseize. So could just be keeping up Consider, could be keeping up Fatal Push here. You know, I don't think we're really in a position where we can just pass and not play a Soulscar Mage, right? So if it gets Fatal Push, it gets Fatal Push. We'll just trade the card and the mana. Because it could very well be a Consider. Or it could have been a Spell Pierce, possibly, but I think that's pretty unlikely. It is a Fatal Push, but what can you do? And no second land drop here, so maybe there is a Consider going on here as well. In which case, we definitely want to force as much mana use as we can. Not an amazing way to do that, though. So we can just play Soulscar Mage here. And then I could consider... Yeah, I'm just going to do this now. In their upkeep, let's cast Seek the Beast. No Spell Pierce. And the hits are Monstrous Rage and a land. And we didn't see a Consider, and we're going to clean up. So, yeah, I wonder exactly what's going on here in the hand. No second Fatal Push, no Spell Pierce, no Consider. I don't really know what other cards I should be considering playing around. Obviously, we're very far ahead here. The opponents hit or missed 3 of their land drops, so it looks kind of academic. But considering I am against one of the best players on the platform here, I'm still going to take my time and try to play as well as possible. I think what that means here, considering they're stuck on 1 mana, is we'll play out our Questing Druid and we'll just fire off this Monstrous Rage during combat. You know, and if they Fatal Push something, then they Fatal Push something. That's perfectly fine, but we'll get a counter on our Questing Druid. Going to put this on our Etching of Kumano since it's overall less valuable than our Soulscar Mage. And it is going to get killed. That's perfectly fine. And then, yeah, we can get in for 2 damage and pass the turn. So likely something was going to die to Fatal Push there anyway. And we had to use the card that turn, so, you know, so it goes. And we are seeing Jace Reawakened. Okay, so very cool. So will they have the Valky? I presume that's what's going on. They are plotting something. And it is a Valky, so they're going to have a Valky online next turn. Do we actually have lethal? This is 3, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11. Yeah, we just have lethal. So we can just fire away and cast everything, and that'll be the game. Could have been a very scary one if the opponent didn't stumble on mana, though. And 3 damage, +1/+1. Those on the stack. And play with fire in the face. Put those in the stack. Okay, game 2. So blue-black mid-range or control, we're not really sure. With the Jace Valky combo. I suppose with the Jace, what other cards are we likely to see in their deck? We're maybe going to see some powerful 3-drops that they would like to play. So maybe some Graveyard Trespassers and things like that. I could see being in the deck. Kind of don't really know what's going on here. Pick Your Poison seems like it doesn't do anything against them. Rending Volley doesn't hit Planeswalkers, obviously, so we're not interested in that. Magebane Lizard, I mean, it's going to ping them, you know, for a little bit. Are they really going to be casting multiple spells a turn? Ferocidon, very expensive. Doesn't seem like they have much life gain going on. So I guess these 3 cards are maybe the only ones we're interested in. We can take out Witchstalker Frenzies. Seems like that card isn't going to do very much. Maybe they can play out a Valky, or it'll kill a Shark token or something like that. But that's not exactly the most exciting thing. I think I'm going to take these out and let's bring in a case of the Crimson Pulse, just give us some late game against them. And do I want these Magebane Lizards, or at least one of them? I think I'll just bring in one of them. You know, it's likely to just maybe sit there and do some damage. Is it actually better than a Witchstalker Frenzy, though, which is just a card I can cast? I don't know. Let's give it a go. Just the one of them. Can't hurt that much, right? I don't think it's amazing, but Witchstalker Frenzy also not so good. Maybe we'll see some Sheoldred slam down here, though, which will make me think differently. And this is going to be tougher on the draw, but it should still be a great matchup for us. The hand looks absolutely excellent. Starts to look a good bit weaker if we get turn 1 Thought Seized. Presumably they'll take our show off, but then we still have a Questing Druid to find some more gas, get us back in the game, and this is still going to be a strong curve on turns 1 and 2. Opponent mulligans, goes to 6, tapped Watery Grave, so that's nice, no Thoughtseize. So same as last game, we'll just start with the Kumano. I tried this Jace thing myself. I tried jamming it into the Red-Black Vampires deck, going for Grixis with that and just adding another 2-card combo. It wasn't very good. The mana base was terrible, and it didn't really function as intended, I would say. So here, again, I'm going to play the Soulscar Mage just to get the counter. If they have a Fatal Push, they have a Fatal Push. If they have a counter, they have a counter. And then with our second mana, we can plot the Demonic Ruckus. So this plays around Censor. And, you know, something is going to get Fatal Pushed at some stage. So I like the fact that this gets something into play while being mana efficient. They do with the Fatal Push. The other option was just to plot the Slickshot. But considering that as haste, I think, you know, getting the Soulscar Mage into play earlier is better. And they have a Cling to Dust on their own Fatal Push to draw a card. And then they see the truth, looking for a land pretty hard, it looks like, there. And they play Shipwreck Marsh. Okay. 1 mana up. And here I'm happy just to, well, I guess let's go to combat first. But we'll just be plotting at passing. So plot our show off, pass the turn. You know, we don't get to seek the beast here, so you could argue that maybe we should have held on to our manas, but okay, and with Valky here, they're going to be able to take one of our Questing Druids. That's fine. It's, you know, having 2 of these, one of them is kind of almost a blank at this stage. Opponent does know about the Blossoming Defense now, which does make it significantly worse, obviously. And we draw a 4th land. I mean, I'm just going to attack and pass with Seek the Beast up, I think, and cast it in their upkeep. No reason to play into the open mana. And happy to trade here and get our other Questing Druid back. We can just pass the turn. So in their upkeep, let's cast this. And we hit 2 lands. So, you know, people say, oh, that sucks. I always think, well, at least they're not on the top of our deck anymore, you know? At least we're not drawing them. Tarka's Command is the draw for the turn. So here, we can just play the pathway. I can consider just playing a Questing Druid out here, just use some of our mana. I quite like doing that, actually. And then just pass the turn and look to cast the other Seek the Beast in their upkeep. Game is getting maybe a little bit scary here, out of hand, in terms of they're getting up on mana. They get Kalitas back into their hand there. And yeah, I suppose we should still do this now. Get a counter on our Questing Beast. Could have done that in the end step after they used the mana there, but I think they're very unlikely to counter this either way. And we hit a show off and a... Wait, we've plotted the demonic ruckus. What happened? Oh, yeah, okay, we hit a demonic ruckus and a Slickshot. Because they're the same cards we had plotted, so I was like, did we not get any new cards? But the other cards are over here at the moment. It's a weird way they display it on Moto. So yeah, here's our plotted cards that come back. So now we have access to all of these cards. I just have to make sure that, you know, I click the right ones. It says cast without paying its mana cost. And they are tapped out here. We have a Blossoming Defense. So is this enough to kill them? Double Slickshot, double Ruckus? I think it must be, right? You know, maths is for blockers, as they say. We will probably see the Fatal Push, if they have it, come out before this resolves, so I don't get a trigger. No, they don't have it. Okay. Again, we just get to do this. That goes on there. I suppose this goes on here. And, you know, this is 18 or 12 if we just take the hit. Or sorry, if we don't let them block with the Kalitas. Now they could still have Fatal Push here, which is fine. But 12, 15, 17, yeah, I'm just going to cast this. What I could have done is attack with this as well and gone for the no life gain mode to make them lose the Kalitas. But we'll see what happens here. Yeah, okay, so we lose one of our guys. We do get in for 9, 12 overall, and we still have a 7, 7. But now that I think of it, I wasn't thinking about the life gain mode, so we could have attacked with this for sure. That would have been a better play. I didn't want them to survive if they had nothing by gaining the life, but obviously they wouldn't have. We would have lost some damage, but they still would have been dead if they had nothing. Yeah, that was a bit of a punt there, right? Opponents attacking with everything. I'm going to assume that means they have a sweeper, so... But, you know, whatever, either way. You know, it could be Path of Peril, right? Or something. I don't know why they would make that attack then, but... If it's Languish, I look like a bit of an idiot here, I suppose. It's Extinction Event, so that's fine. Yeah, it was going to die anyway, so it doesn't make a difference. And we draw off this. And then they have 1 mana up. So attacking with the Den is 4. And then I can do another 2. Which seems not too bad. Getting this guy into play also seems okay. But no, I like attacking with the Den, considering we still have Blossoming Defense up. And we get a second Den down. But yeah, big punt by me there with the Atarka's command, forgetting the opponents can't gain life mode. Like, even though I mentioned it at the start of the tournament. Just slipped my mind there. Okay. Opponent plays Jace, 2 cards in hand. And if we see them plot here, yeah, we'd be quite happy, but they are looting. And I probably will just shock face here to use my mana at the end of turn. They discard a negate. You know, it's kind of hard for them to be able to answer another Den and this Atarka's command and Blossom in defense. So let's just do this. Land on the bottom. Copperline Gorge. So does it really make a difference the way I do this here? I don't particularly think so, but let's do it like this anyway. Go to combat, and we'll attack with both. Sacrifices a non-token creature. So then we will try and just cast this, I suppose. 3 damage, creatures get +1/+1. And that does it. Okay, so good games to our opponent. And yeah, I mean, tough matchup. They mulliganed. They didn't hit their land drops. And I think it's a tough matchup anyway. So see you guys in round 3. Okay, we're back again for round 3. Won the die roll, which is always nice. Is that 3 in a row? I think it might be. And what do we think of this opening hand? We're against the Orion deck. It's another good sign for our deck. And much like last round, this absolutely needs a second hand to function, and even then we're not really doing anything until turn 3. So I think we got to throw this one back. This looks just much better. I would say ideal. And pretty clearly we want to put back the Witchstalker's Frenzy. It's the slowest card, and it's going to do the least in this matchup. Whereas all of our other cards look pretty good and likely to get towards a pretty quick kill here. So this hand kind of plays itself, as sometimes this deck tends to do. Not much to talk about here, and we do start with Temple Garden again. Assuming then this is some kind of Bring to Light Niv sort of deck. And here, much similar to the last time we faced Niv, we're just going to plot our show off. We're not going to expose it to any kind of removal. Triple Blossoming Defense is not really where you want to be with the, the however many green sources we have, 13 green source deck or whatever. Unlikely we're going to be able to double spell with these. But we don't need that much more help. This game is something I will say. It does mean, maybe I'm interested in kind of aggressively firing one off here. Okay, but that said, that just kind of fixes everything. And we do kind of need to just start attacking here, especially since they're ramping. So we will just get in for as much damage as possible here. And, it's unfortunately not that efficient with the damage, but we just got to get this guy out of the way. Losing a bit of damage by casting this here is probably buying us a turn in terms of winning the game, because they're losing access to a mana. And Caryatid is very important when they're a 5-color deck, right? This is providing mana of any color, and they're down to 3 colors here with their current lands, and they play a lot of triomes. Up the beanstalk, just like the last game, we're delighted to see. Essentially just means they're spinning the wheels. Into the triome means they're still missing blue for full domain. And Demonic Ruckus. So currently we have 2 base damage. This is +5 is 7, +5 is 12. So not quite the kill. So I think that means here we're happy enough just plotting a Demonic Ruckus and doing this. I mean, we could have cast Demonic Ruckus and left up a single Blossoming Defense, considering a sweeper is maybe more likely, but they don't have access to 5 mana this turn. So I feel like holding up the double defense, being a little more greedy, will do it here, because we do have a kill next turn. And they do play another tap land. They have access to blue now. Are we seeing Vanishing Verse? Okay, so we will certainly save our Premier 2-drop with a Blossoming Defense. Lose out on a little bit of damage. but that's fine. And then, so we have 2 damage. This is another 4 damage, 2 + 1 + 1. So that's 6. And then this is another 5 damage. So that's 11 total damage. So it doesn't quite get us there. I'm going to put this Demonic Ruckus on Soulscar Mage. So this is 6. And again, this would be another 5, right? Yeah. So no reason to really cast this. We'll just attack for 6, play our tap land, and pass the turn. Not ideal that we don't get to, use mana effectively here, but if they do have a sweeper, we still get a redraw off this Demonic Ruckus. Okay, looks like we're seeing a Bring to Light or a Niv. It's a Bring to Light. They draw a card. And I presume we're going to see Sunfall here, possibly Deadly Cover-Up to get rid of our Slickshots. Okay, it is Sunfall. So they have a 2/2 Incubator, and we drew a land. That does mean we get to attack with Den, at the very least. And that will be our play. Just get in some damage with the Den. Put a 1/1 on the battlefield. So put them to 4, and we have a play with fire in hand alongside a Blossom in defense. So potentially game-winning damage here, but they are now set up with their 5 colors in mana, their 5 mana to cast Bring to Lights, and they're up the beanstalk. So this is the point of the game at which they can start turning it around. And we have a Drowned Catacomb. So they're up to 6 mana. If they don't have anything to do with sorcery speed here, it seems quite likely we win, though. They can have, multiple Leyline bindings. But I'm kind of wondering what they're going to be doing with this Grixis mana. They can have Kolaghan's Command. They could have another Vanishing Verse. They can have Assassin's Trophy, maybe, with the black-green. And they can just be spending 2 mana here to activate their token to make a blocker as well. So, do we want to just activate the Den again? Have them trade with this 2/2? And maybe take 2 damage from the 1/1s, and then we'll be out of mana? Or do we want to expose, a Swift Spear to a possible double removal spell here? I'm kind of inclined to just attack with the Den again, because they shouldn't have that many spells. They could have a Boseiju as well that's able to take out the Den. If they do kill it before attacks, maybe we still play with Fire their face. It uses all our mana efficiently, but at best, for us, they're trading here with their 2/2. We're getting through for 2 damage, and they can maybe start gaining some life here. They must have some life gain cards in their deck. I think I'm okay, but if I play the Swift Spear and attack, we can play with fire the token and then look to get through. Then they cast a removal spell. Then we have Blossoming Defense. They still have 4 cards and 3 mana left. This is the less ambitious line, but given that we have a little bit of burn in hand, I'm just going to attack with the Den. I think this, I don't think we can get punished too hard for this. Exile target monocolored permanent. Okay. And then, or do we care about casting Play with Fire here to get the Scry one, put them to 2? We have quite a few decent draws in the deck. It would make a Questing Druid, Seek the Beast kind of appealing, Swift Spear into that next turn. On the other hand, this Play with Fire will always be able to take out this Incubator token on a later turn. providing prowess triggers. So how much do we care about losing the scry 1 and losing access to this mana without using it? I think I want to do it. I think putting them to 2 is not nothing. And an extra point of mana getting used could be the difference between winning and losing. Monstrous Rage is an interesting one. I'm going to keep it. It lets us get through the Incubator token on blocks with a threat. We don't have to go in next turn, you know, and try and kill them. We can just put Giganta in hand if we want, you know, and leave up a Blossoming Defense. So it's not as sort of all in as a card as it looks like, I don't think, to keep. Okay, we have an Omnath, so here's the start of the life gain. And they do have a Fabled Passage, so they're going to get the extra mana as well. So it would have turned out better for us if we'd played Swift Spear and attacked rather than Den, but it still wouldn't have been a kill. So here they can gain another 4 life with their Fable Passage. So we're certainly not killing them. They have 4 cards in hand. And they'll have access to 3 mana. Does putting Giganta in hand really help us that much, though? I kind of think it doesn't. I kind of think this is the beginning of the end in terms of when we can realistically win this game. So I think, okay, doing this and attacking is probably the play. One of our 2 Witchstalker frenzies is on the bottom of our deck, which would be one of our only ways to cleanly deal with Omnath. Which is unfortunate, and I'm going to attack with both here. You know, I don't really care if I lose this, if they're using 2 spells to protect this. This is a pretty bad block, I think, right? It's maybe indicating a removal spell, but yeah, it's another Vanishing Verse, it looks like. Okay, we're kind of priced into saving this now. And, you know, if they somehow have Fatal Push here, you know, they just have it all. Okay, but they don't, and we're actually getting in for 7 damage. Put them to 3. That's kind of better than I thought that would work out. And they're playing a tap land, going back up to 7. I'm not doing some serious work here. They've already gained 12 life from it. They play a Fable. And a Characted, so they're presenting a lot of toughness here for us to get through. Could be very difficult. We draw a Play with Fire. Does that make me want to attack all? I think it does. I think, like last turn, they probably just don't block with Omnath again, if they didn't last turn. So there's not really, you know, this can't really turn out that badly, I don't think. And yeah, I'll just do this. This keeps our 1/1 alive. Kills their Caryatid. We get to put Giganta in hand. Now, so they have 2 cards. They had 1 card last turn, obviously. So they discard both cards, an Omnath and a land, to Fable. Now we're seeing a Leyline Binding drawing a card. And with another land drop here, that might be the end. Pillage the Bog. So they get to look at 8 cards. No, 16 cards and take 1? That's wild, isn't it? That's like almost a demonic tutor at that point. Wow, this card is kind of wild. 2 mana for a cantrip obviously is at sorcery is expensive, but when you're getting to look at 10 plus cards, that's close to 20 cards. That seems pretty amazing. Okay, and they have a bunch of mana. And we're seeing a Niv Mizzet, I presume, here. Oh, it's Yorion in hand. Yorion getting a bunch of value. And I don't think that we can win the game from here. We may as well take a draw step, but I don't think there's any cards in our deck that can do it from here. Yeah, no, we can just skip it up. There's no way to win that one. So it didn't quite get there. Pardon me. So again, similar to last time, pick your poisons. Obviously great against Yorion. Leyland Binding, Beanstalk, Temporary Lockdown, Niv Mizzet. Case, not that interested. I think it's just... I just think we're just not winning these slow games regardless of whether we have this card in our deck or not. Rending Volley does kill Omnath, which is something I didn't consider last time, but ideally they should just be dead before they get to play an Omnath. Same with Ferocidon, so I think we just bring in the Pick Your Poisons. And yeah, we're cutting the Frenzies and a Play with Fire. I think this is the same boarding I did last time. And let's just be on the play and kill them. I think that's a good plan. Not exactly talking through too many big brain lines with this deck, but it's a red Prowess deck. You kind of know what you're signing up for when you register this deck, and it's just about using that mana efficiency, trying to find those kills before they can turn the game around. This is a very expensive hand, but we do have, one drop into Show Off. I'm going to keep this one on the basis that there are basically no bad draws. Lands are decent draws, 1 mana spells are good draws. There's Questing Druids are kind of the only other 2 mana spells in our deck that we have left to draw. Okay. And yeah, as you would expect here, we'll just plot this and attack. Hopefully they didn't start playing Aven Interrupter or something, but I presume not. I don't even know if that spell affects both, or if that creature affects both players, or if it doesn't. Okay, and they can very well have Vanishing Verse here, right? Is it reasonable at all for us to hold off on playing the Slickshot for a turn? We would essentially just be lightning striking them in that case. That would play around a Temporary Lockdown better. I think I'm willing to do that. I think I'm willing to just attack for 1 this turn and essentially, say, okay, we're just going to waste your mana here, And we will shock and leave this up because I think it's pretty reasonable for me to just burn their face, at least with an Atarka's Command on their turn, if not with something else. Okay, and they have Abrupt Decay. So they would have had removal for our Slickshot. They do get to use their mana though, but... Okay, so again, they do have Abrupt Decay up here, or, oh, never mind. Pillage the Bog, very aggressive here, right? Okay, so I'm casting Atarka's Command just to do 3 damage here, and then I could consider casting Play with Fire, because if the Scribe finds us another land, then I get to plot and double Atarka's Command. So they're going to 14 here from this, it'd be 12 from the Play with Fire. then if we draw a land, we would plot our guy, and that's 1 base damage plus 6 from each Atarka's command, so that would be dead. If I just Atarka's command and we don't draw a land, though, then that's put them to 14, and then that's 1 base plus 6 plus 4, which is 11, so that would leave them on 3, but then we have 2 burn spells in hand. Having 2 burn spells in hand, that seems perfectly reasonable. So I think we just do it like this. And if we naturally draw a land, which we do, all the better. Fantastic. So 3 damage plus 1/1. And 3 damage plus 1/1. And that puts them to 1. So I think it's impossible here for them to deal with our guy and gain life to not die with Play with Fire. Yeah. So virtual kill there. And we go on to game 3, and we got to try and win it on the draw. Do we have any interest in Magebane Lizard on the draw? You know, if this is alive when they cast Bring to Light, it's 3 damage, right? It's 1 plus 2 damage. It doesn't work on creature spells. And it can kind of screw us over too, but they don't really have any aggressive starts. I don't really think we're supposed to change anything. It's possible that I should even cut a Questing Druid for a Play with Fire, just to keep the curve lower. In fact, I'm going to do that on the draw. I just think by the time we're casting Questing Druids, the game is just in pretty rough shape already. So let's just keep the curve as low as possible. You know, when you get gifted a matchup where your opponent has decided to put 80 cards instead of 60 in their deck, I think slowing the game down when you sideboard is a big mistake. I think this is a pretty clear keep. Obviously, it's mana intensive and we need a second land, but we have multiple 1-drops. You know, Demonic Ruckus doesn't look like it, but it is a 1-drop. And that is beautiful. Copperline Gorge is perfect. And we will just start with the Kumano. Could have plotted the Ruckus here as well, given that we have the show off and used this for a Prowess trigger on a future turn. Would have been fine. They've turned to Caryatid. And this is kind of the thing. You kind of don't want to use your turn 2 with your Kumano a lot of the time in this deck. And that is just going to be the case here. We're just going to plot our show off and pass the turn. But this is the beautiful thing about this deck. Getting to use your mana on turn 2 without exposing your threat to counters or removal just feels absolutely incredible. And it really puts an aggro deck in a place that I feel like we haven't had in Magic for quite a long time. I feel like aggro decks have really lagged behind these kind of mid-range piles, and like the card quality and the value that players in mid-range decks are just getting from every card they put in their deck has been too much to compete with. But Plot is a real game changer, in my opinion, on that. So if you're watching this and you're unsure, I would say this card is definitely the real deal. It's really putting aggro back on the map. It's unfortunate that they're like €18 a pop at the moment or whatever, but you know, maybe they'll go down a little bit. I'm just going to get in for some damage here. Let's go with the Play with Fire. I just want to limit their mana as much as possible here. And yeah, we can make them sacrifice their Fable as well. And this is getting in for 7. As well as getting to plot our Demonic Ruckus. So we put them to 12. They are on the Omnath turn now if they have Omnath plus Fable Passage here. Could be kind of a disaster, but I don't think we could have just held off and let them loot with their Fable. They do take out our Sure Shot. And they have another Fable, but that's fine. We didn't have protection for the Sure Shot anyway, so it's not like we could... we had really a better spot. You know, it definitely got in for some good damage there. And here... Okay, so they're on 12. This is 2 damage. 5. 6. 10. This will put them to 2. If they don't block. But we can just do so much better with the Demonic Crocus if it gives us a Prowess trigger later. That I don't want to play the Prowess trigger here just on this 2/2. This is nice to see. I'm going to Monstrous Rage here. I want to keep the Atarka's command for if they play Omnath. And for that reason, I'm not going to play Pick Your Poison here on this Fable. They're also getting close to the point where they could just play a Niv Mizzet or play a play their Yorion. Okay, they discard 2 lands, play a Forest, play Pillage the Bog. That's completely fine. And they've used their land drop for the turn, so we don't have to worry about Omnath gaining them a bunch of life. We do need a little bit of help from the top of the deck, though. If I had used the Demonic Crocus last turn, they wouldn't have blocked, right? So it would have been the same amount of damage. We would have just attacked with a 3/3 and gotten 3 for 3, rather than with a 5/3 and getting 3 for 3. But we would be getting through for an extra damage this turn, essentially. Okay, Soulscar Mage. So I'm not going to sit here and say that we have a million different lines we could take. But let's consider our options. We're going to attack for 3. They're not going to block. We put them to 6. They're not going to block. We Atarka's command and put them to 2. We Ruckus attack and Atarka's command. They don't block. We put them to 1. We just attack, put them to 6, play Soulscar Mage, pass the turn. We stop them gaining a life with Omnath, but we're opening ourselves up to a sweeper. Or we just attack, put them to 6. We could either play Pick Your Poison to kill the Fable and Soulscar Mage, or we could just Pick Your Poison to leave up Atarka's command. I think Pick Your Poison is better off at this stage, though, taking out a flyer than taking out the Fable enchantment. And they did block. Does that change anything? No, right? I mean, indicates to me that there is a sweeper coming. I'm just gonna pass the turn, leave up Atarka's command. Given that they could be tapping out for a sweeper here, maybe I should have just put Giganta in my hand. But I just think it's too much of a disaster if they play Omnath here with Fable Passage. And I just didn't think that playing the Soulscar Mage... They just have to have a sweeper here, right? So just why play the Soulscar Mage? They play Yorion. Okay, so Yorion... exiling Fable. So and they play a tap land, so I guess they don't have a sweeper. And we actually would have dominated if we played the Soul Skirmage. But I think that the odds of it going like this are pretty low. I don't think I made a mistake. Atarka's command now just puts them to 6. It's not very interesting. I think we're supposed to just untap and kill the Orion, most likely. Yeah. So let's have you... Well, okay. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter. Okay, let's have you sacrifice a flyer. That doesn't get exiled because it didn't get dealt damage. I kind of didn't know that's how that worked, to be honest. Attacking for 6 rather than, or for 3 rather than attacking for 4. Do we care? I think it's much the same, so I think we're just going to attack for 3 and save the Prowess trigger. Okay, they block. And we will just play our Soul Skirmage and pass. So they're getting another look with the 2 new cards here, 2 need to with the Fable. They've seen so much of their deck, Pillage the Bog, this, okay, and they discard 2 lands. They have gotten pretty flooded this game, it looks like, but they've been able to filter through it. But we're in pretty great shape here, I think. Oh boy. Okay, and they're getting rid of our etching, that's fine. It's kind of an interesting one because it's a ping straight away. If we can sage you this leyline, ping them for 1, because it'll come back as a Kumano. And they have 1 card. And there's just nothing to be said here, right? We just play our cards and attack. I think there's no way we're supposed to save this Demonic Ruckus for any longer. Minus trample. Let's do it. After combat, 3 damage. Opponents can't gain life this turn, why not? And that does it. Okay, nice. We win the match. That I think was very close. I think quite unlucky that our opponent didn't find more action, considering how much they got to look through their deck with the multiple fables, pillage the bog, all that stuff, and the fact that the game ended on turn 7. I think that's a pretty clutch win, I think. But we are 3-0 now, so that's nice. And I'll see you guys for round 4. Welcome back, guys. We're here for the final round of the prelim. 3-0. So let's see who we get in the finals. Not too familiar with these players. We're on the draw. Is this the end of the beautiful run of luck? Listen, I've won on the draw before, you know? It can happen again. I've heard it happens. We're against another Yorion deck. That's definitely a good thing. And this hand against a Yorion deck is not too exciting, is it? But yeah, man, I think, I don't know if we can keep this. Like, double Witchstalker Frenzy is just so likely to have no targets that you could almost consider this like a mull to 5 against a Yorion deck. The rest of the hand is obviously good, but we are in the draw, so Maybe you can consider keeping this. But my instinct is that we got to throw this back. Is this worse than the average 6? Like, let's say one of the Witch Stalker Frenzies wasn't here. Would we be happy with this? I suppose we would. You know what? Let's keep it based on that. I think it's probably better than the average 6. Okay, they start off with a Savai Triumph. And we got nothing going on here. We're just going to play land and pass the turn. Another 1 mana spell is nice, for sure. Okay, they play Caryatid. And I'm not tempted to play with Fire their face. I think that would be a little wild. Another Blossom in Defense. I mean, that's kind of one we only want one of. I would have liked to see another, another Sure Shot or something like that, or Kumano or Soulscar Mage or something like that would have been fine, but spells are spells. Still not sure about this keep. I think this is probably the most interesting hand that we've had. Now it looks pretty great because they have played Omnath. But annoyingly we can't actually cast it, even if we play our guys, right? So what I could consider doing here is just like double play with firing the Omnath and attacking. So that would get us in for 5, and it just means they're not getting anything off this Omnath. The other option is to plot our second show off. But in that case, we let them on tap. They're gonna presumably, have at least one on that trigger go to 24, or probably get 4 extra mana, cast a Bring to Light for something huge. So I think I'm kind of priced into just this double play with fire play. As nasty as this is, it's like, even though they have the early Omnath, because we didn't draw the land, the Witch Stalker Frenzy doesn't even get there, isn't even useful. If they play another Omnath now, it'll hopefully be useful next turn at least, but possibly not even. Sometimes in Magic you gotta make plays that don't excite you, that don't spark joy, Opponent plays Niv Mizzet, they get Vanishing Verse, Lila, Bring to Light. We don't draw a land. Man, this is rough, huh? They're just Bring to Lighting next turn. I guess we just plot another show off here. But this game is looking pretty out of reach. So Lila, whenever they cast a multicolored instant or sorcery, they get to plot it instead of putting it in their graveyard, which is pretty wild. Here's the Bring to Light. And they're getting an Omnath. Okay. They got the Fable Passage, so this is another 5 mana and some life. And we'll see. I mean, it's possible we can still win here. The game isn't completely over, but it kind of depends what they play now as the follow-up to the Omnath. Okay, they're playing a Lila, and Lightning Helix killing our guy, and they get to recast the Lightning Helix next turn for free. They're on 22. I'm pretty happy now saying the game is over. It's a pretty beefy start. And, I'm still not super against my keep. I think this game looks very different if we had drawn that third land. You know, it's also just not over now either. We actually have a pretty powerful turn here. Got to play this. Attack with these two. And then I think we gotta just go for... Oh, we only get to kill one of the guys, right? No, I mean, the game is over then. I thought these were costume 1, not 2. Yeah, the game's just over. I thought we could kill both their creatures, but obviously not. Okay, so same as the previous Yorin games. I think I'm just bringing in the Pick Your Poisons. Cutting these Witchstalker Frenzies, which showed their traitorous nature that round. And then I think I've been deliberating between Questing Druid and Play with Fire. I think Questing Druid is maybe the cut. 3 is still a pretty high number to have. And we want to just get them dead in this matchup before they can get their ducks in a row. Rending Volley, considering we've seen Lila, is also becomes a little more interesting. But I don't think that's enough reason to bring it in. Just Omnath and Lila. It's still very few targets. You definitely just want to play the proactive role in this matchup and just try to kill them. 4 lands is a lot of lands, but again, going off the same heuristic as last time, I'd probably keep this on 6, you know, minus a Stomping Ground or a Carplusan Forest or whatever, so I think we're supposed to keep it here. And when you're playing aggro, you just got to trust in the top of the deck, right? That's what you're signed up for. Okay, totally fine. I'm not interested in monstrous raging here or anything like that. Let's just pass the turn. Okay, so no domain yet. We're not worried about leyline binding or anything like that. Just play a pathway and attack. And I'm just going to put Gigantha into my hand. I don't really care about saving this Swift Spear on their turn. If they use removal, they use removal. I'm definitely banking on drawing a sure shot or something like that and being able to save that on our turn, on our terms, where we're able to get a nice boost from it. Okay. And this looks pretty nice. We get to make a profitable attack here. No blocks, and yeah, we'll just get in for 2 again. I think all these spells, you know, can do a little bit more later in the game. We have so much mana. We're not going to be gated on mana at all. You know, it's unlikely I tap out for a Gigant the next turn or whatever. Although, you know, it could happen. I guess if they kill our Swift Spear here, it wouldn't be the worst play in the world. But I think more likely is that we hold up mana, hopefully draw another creature. And get to drip feed out these spells, hopefully when we find another Prowess creature. Get some more damage in. Opponent's thinking, if they have Omnath, I have to assume they would slam it here. So they're maybe thinking, you know, do they want to use a sweeper just on a single Swift Spear or something like that? They go to Fable, okay. Second Caryatid. Okay, so like I said, we're not going to be limited by mana really this turn, so no reason to play with fire on their turn. I think we just start with an attack. See how they want to block if they do. And they want to block like that. So I can start with Seek the Beast. I think that's the play. Just start with the Prowess trigger and see what options we draw. We drew a show off and a land, okay? So then I will play with fire the Fable token to get up to 3 power. Then after combat, let's play the land and play the show off. Can't plot it, unfortunately, because you can only do that from hand. You can't do it from exile. But still, that's some good value. We got full value off the Seek the Beast, and we cleared out the Fable token and a Caryatid. So I would say not unlikely that they're fine losing those. Maybe they have a sweeper or something like that. But we don't end up down in cards from this exchange because of the Seek the Beast. And they are on 14. They're taking a little chip damage, so I feel like we're still in a decent-ish position this game. Not exactly the nuts, obviously, but pretty hopeful. Okay, looks like we're seeing a Bring to Light or something. We have the classic Moto. Make sure you tap your mana correctly for the 5-color spell going on. Yep, Bring to Light, 5 colors. We're maybe going to see a Sunfall or something like that. Or are we just going to see a big 5-color dragon enter the battlefield, maybe? Could be an Omnath. They haven't played a land yet, but it is a culling ritual. Okay. So this culling ritual is making 3 mana? 4 mana, sorry, because it destroyed the Kumano as well. So same as the previous culling ritual we played against. Essentially acts as, a 0 mana sweeper, which is excellent. But what can they actually do here with just black and green mana? Tapped land doesn't really help them. Pillage the Bog, okay. Interesting they chose to do this after playing their land for turn. I would think that you would want to hold your land drop maybe, but I don't know. But so that indicates to me this is probably the only land they had in hand. And they have 2 spells. Because otherwise you would want to, you would maybe play a different land depending on what you take, right, from Pillage the Bog. Or maybe they just have 2 Triomes or something like that, so they figured they're playing one of them no matter what. Continue to be impressed by this Pillage the Bog card. I haven't played with it myself yet, but it looks quite impressive. Okay, so they thought on that one they were looking at 10 cards, which is wild, and they can't use their final 2 mana. Okay, opponent's on 14. Is this the worst time to just get Giganta in play? That seems like a fine thing to do to me. Could have played the Questing Druid, and left up mana, but I think that's just leaving too much mana, fallow, unspent in our mana pool. This seems like the right option to just tap out and play Giganta. And obviously we do still have Blossom and Defense up to defend our big elemental elk. Definitely the companion I've played with the most at this stage. Still comes across as like a reasonably fair power level companion, for the format. Even if it does still feel silly at times, that it's such a low opportunity cost to put it into a deck. Okay, and they have an Omnath here. They play the Omnath. They draw a card. They have the Fable Passage. These Yorion players just got the Fable Passage every time, huh? Okay, Swamp, another 5 mana. And we got a big old Niv Mizzet. So they reveal the top 10. And they get Deafening Clarion and another Bring to Light into hand. So that's pretty good for us. Now, do I want to Boseiju their Reflection end of turn? Boseiju is only costing 1 mana at the moment because Giganta's legendary. I think I do. The Reflection isn't doing very much at the moment, but you know, they can definitely get some value off it later, and I don't think we need the mana. You know, if they have a Leyline Binding, I think it's probably just game over anyway, so I prefer to get rid of that thing now. They dealt 4 to us because they got another Yorion trigger off that, of course. Okay, so here we get to, that was a slight, it didn't matter, it was a slight mistap on my mana, but get to play Questing Druid. I will get to attack here, of course. And okay, that's great. Get to Monstrous Rage. 8/6, and then let's make it a 10/8 until end of turn. So we kill their Niv, get in for 4, and get to pass the turn. Big old Giganta doing work. This is why the card is so good. It's like you think, oh, this land plays 20 lands or whatever, or this deck plays 20 lands. It's so aggressive. How often are you going to have games where, you know, you get a Giganta into play or whatever? But the truth is, they do just happen, especially post board, you know. And having this as an option, a companion, if your opponent doesn't have one, is just can be so powerful. Obviously, in this case, they have Yorion, but I've seen some versions of this deck in Modern and in Pioneer that literally can play Giganta, and you know, they fit the restriction, and they just don't have it in the sideboard. And I'm like, I just think that's absolutely wild. There's no single sideboard card, in my opinion, that's better than being able to put any companion, even if this was a 3 mana 2/2 with no abilities. I think that would probably still be worth it. You know, maybe that's a bit far for some people, but I think if you ever consider not playing a companion when you could, then it's something you need to reevaluate in your deck building. Opponent thinking on this one. They're going with another Niv Mizzet Reborn. Yep, so they get to look at the top 10 again. And this time they get Pillage the Bog and Cosmic Rebirth. Looks like we're just seeing the Pillage the Bog get cast. This time they get to look at the top 14 cards of their deck and take one. This card, man, every time my opponent casts it, it's looking better and better, you know? And I would imagine this is close to the end of the road for us next turn. They just get to regrowth something, you know, a Niv or a Fable or something like that, and it's going to be very difficult for us to kill them, especially with this constant life gain from the Omnath. Okay, so we have a blank draw. And I think the play here is to attack with both. I don't want them to double block Giganta, so I'm drawing them away from that if possible, and this lets me, you know, yeah, use this Blossoming Defense to get through this second Niv and just get in for some damage. And you know what? Let's play out the land, screw it. I don't think it makes a difference, but maybe we'll chain multiple Questing Druids together, seek the beasts off the top of the deck, and we'll be glad for the extra mana. Anything's possible. And really, what are we bluffing here, you know? The opponent's just going to play what they're going to play anyway. They have 6 cards in hand. They have access to Cosmic Rebirth. It's going to be a tough one for us. I'll take one more draw step, and then I'm pretty sure I'm happy to scoop it up after that. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. I think this prelim has been hopefully instructive in terms of just what the deck looks like, sort of the sort of average play patterns, the average sort of curve outs at the start of the game, and sort of how the texture of post-board games changes. Not that much, obviously, you're not sideboarding that much, but it does slow down a little bit. But you can see at the end of the day, you are basically just a pure aggro deck, and you do need to be ending these games before they have, you know, before they've cast 4 permanents that cost Wooburg. That tends to be a bad sign for your aggro deck. So they play the other Niv now, or one of the 3 Nivs they probably play. Each instant and sorcery in your graveyard, that's exactly 2 colors, has flashback or has jumpstart. So they get to jumpstart the Pillage of the Bog, they find another land, and they get to do their thing with Omnath again. This is going to give them a bunch of mana with which they can Cosmic Rebirth. I don't think they've used that yet. And they still have this Deafening Clarion in their hand as well if they want to kill our Questing Druid. We have another Bring to Light, this time for 4. I imagine this is just going to be a removal spell or something like that. It's hard for us to just come back if we just lose the Giganta. And yeah, it's just a Molten Collapse. They're just going to kill the Giganta. I think that's a completely respectable choice. And we will take our draw step here and then extend the hand to our opponent, I think. Yep, that's the one. So GG's to our opponent. Thanks to everyone who watched the video. Hopefully it was enjoyable and instructive. 3-1 is pretty nice, losing in the finals. These prelims are tough events. You know, we had good opponents the entire time. And see you guys in the next one. Give a like and subscribe if you feel like it. It helps the channel. Bye.